Welcome to the Plant Spirit Podcast on connecting with plant consciousness and the healing wisdom of nature. I'm your host, Sara Artemisia, and I'm excited to introduce our next guests to the show today. Rochana Felde and Kathleen Aspenns are the co-producers of the Flower Essence podcast, co-hosts of the Flower Essence Conference, and co-founders of the School for Flower Essence Studies with Ruth, Toleldo, Altschuler. Rochana is a flower essence practitioner, researcher, and educator, and she formulates custom essence blends. And Kathleen is a nature intuitive flower essence therapy practitioner and founder of the flower essence line, the Flora of Asia. So Kathleen and Rochana, thank you so much for being here. I am such a huge fan of your work, absolutely love your connection with the flowers, and I'm excited for our conversation today.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, we're so excited to be here and big fans of yours as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes. And our mutual love of the flowers. I'm so excited to dive into this today. And I'd love to start with, of course, the flower essences. And because you work so deeply with them, I'm curious, how do you see flower essences really supporting people in this moment?
It's a really interesting question. The time we're living in right now of such intense change, it's the stress levels and the challenge level of living in this moment right now is very high, and more so than it's been in a couple generations. And what we've experienced all collectively is an experience that's been completely collective experience that we know with the pandemic. The entire world experienced this as one. And it's really brought our awareness that we are all in this together. And one of the real beautiful parts that came out of this experience is that we all started to realize how important nature was, how much nature was essential to our collective mental health, to be able to be in nature, to go outside, to take walks, in whatever way we could connect to the plants, has been something that has been a lifesaver, truly a lifesaver for all of us. And one of the things that we've also noticed is those of us who are in the field of flower essence therapy has noticed that there's been this great awakening and awareness to how incredibly beneficial flower essences are for our individual mental health. And, that extends out collectively as well, right? And so this level of stress, people didn't know this existed. They didn't know that they could get this support in a way that's so accessible and safe and beneficial. I don't know if you're tracking in the news, therapists are booked up. You can't get mental health help. And people need to know that you can get additional support or support in addition to a therapist, or doing your own work internally from nature, directly from nature. You can get this support that you need. We need humans too, but just to know that nature is here for us. Nature is here to help ease some of these deep levels of stress and anxiety and worry. And, there's just so much change going on. We all need all the possible support we can get. And the plants, the flowers are here for us. They want to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And the flower essences, there's so many dimensions that they work with. And we've used them, this modality has been around for decades. I mean, really, if you go back to ancient times, some sort of flower medicine has been in use since the Vedic. It's documented in the Vedic texts and other, ancient documentation. But then Dr. Edward Bach really brought it to kind of modern use in the 1930s and developed the Bach flower remedies. And since then, really there was like a resurgence that started around the early 80s, and now there's so many essences to choose from. There's so many producers making them, but it's still in the United States not really that widely known, although it is in some other countries. And I think like what Kathleen was saying, what we've been going through has brought people to wanting to connect with nature more, wanting to take part in their own self-care, and even just through sheer because other resources haven't been available. It's and this time we've been in, this pandemic, has forced people to look inward on all sorts of levels. What job am I doing? Is it worth it to go to the office anymore? All of these things have been evaluated and reevaluated by so many people all at once at this time, which is so interesting for us, especially that have been working with that, that kind of coaching or helping or flower essence therapy or just in the wellness world, to see how many people are now thinking maybe differently than they thought about themselves and their lives a couple of years ago, and how they want to connect and how they want to change and what's the world they want to create or the environment they want to create for themselves. And flower essences are such a perfect helping hand in that arena. And that's one of the reasons I love them so much. But in addition to that sort of self-help, wellness work, it's that comfort and that connection with nature. And they offer hope. I think nature offers hope, even though we have all of the things to be scared about with nature right now, and the climate and the extremes that are happening on the planet. When we dig in and really connect with the spirit of nature, and not just being reactive to what we're seeing on our news screens of what like nature and the planet's doing, but when we really sit and connect with the plants and work with the flower essences, then we get a whole other picture where we feel that support and that hope. And it's just so key right now.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you were just bringing up with both the collective experience and then how valuable and available it is to really connect in with nature in this beautiful way. And I'm curious to hear in your experiences for both of you, what flower essences do you really see are coming forward to support the collective right now? And what medicines or messages are you hearing from them?
What I've been experiencing in my practice is so many people are deep into ancestral work right now. They are this still place of our experience and this reevaluation of everything. Like you were saying, Ro, like, is this the job I want to do? Is this the life I want to lead? Everyone had, or many people had, the opportunity to really look at themselves and their lives really deeply, because at least on some level, frightened that we could die. We all got this life check. And so many of my clients and the inner work that I do is really looking at these early experiences and how our ancestral gifts, all the ones we wanted, all the ones we didn't want, are coming forward asking to be healed. So one of the families that I'm working with a lot right now is the Artemisia. The Artemisia is the family that contains, among other things, like blueberries and rhododendrons and the madrone. So it has a huge range of ecosystems that this family inhabits. And I find them so essential for healing these really, really early incarnational wounds where we just didn't receive the nurturing and care and love that we needed. And so many people carry these around. So many people have this. It creates in us this feeling that there's never enough. There's never enough love. There's never enough resources. I mean, is not our culture in this moment where we are looking right down the barrel of the capitalist model, which is essentially this wound of never enough. So I'm finding that these plants are coming forward really in this moment to help heal these these wounds that are individual and collective. Those are some of the really big essences I'm working with right in this moment. Ro, what are you seeing coming up?
Well, just as of really yesterday, Aster started really getting into my consciousness, seeing some wild asters on a walk where I live. And I always looked at Aster. So Aster, there's different Aster flower essences, and they all generally work with, there's something you might traditionally use for people who are maybe getting to a point where they are leaving this earth, transitioning, they're in a dying process, and Aster is one that's brought in for those kinds of situations. But I look at it as a plant that helps with transition. And I had and crossing, from one place to another. And as a physical world example, I made a flower essence with Aster some years ago when I lived in a place that had lots of fields, and I would take daily walks around these pastures. And from one year to the next, I would see the Aster plant move. It went from one side of the fence to the other side of the fence. And I saw this real esoteric message with that. And it's one that helps to cross these boundaries that we have. And I see it. So what we're going through on this planet, we're going through deep change, and things are never going to be, they're never going to be the same. We're never going to be go back to any kind of what we thought was normal. We're all completely changed forever. There's nothing that's going to be the same again. And that's quite challenging for some people, and even for the people that might be looking forward to that and want that change. It doesn't really make it any easier to want it. You still have to go through it, and it's still a very challenging thing to do. And I feel that the Aster is one that kind of holds our hand in that process, giving some strength and courage into taking that next step and in that transition. And interestingly, it is a flower that blooms in the fall during a very transitional time of year, like, right now, when everything around it is dying or dead, especially out here on the West Coast in California, or dormant, and there's not a lot of flowers blooming. Aster, this is a time of year here where there might be some flowers that bloom, and Aster is one of them. And so it has that courage to kind of go where others haven't gone before. And I don't want to make a Star Trek reference, but it's it's coming up. It's for that courage to go to that next place and that next step in our evolution.
So interesting that both of you are feeling and hearing this experience of these threshold experiences with the coming in, with the ancestral incarnational things that we come in with, and then Rochana with the transition out. So interesting. And just how that speaks to, in my sense of it, this much broader transition that we're all going through, that we are certainly in such a big transitional space right now. And particularly with your work with highly sensitive people, I'm curious, why are flower essences such an effective medicine for highly sensitive people?
Well, highly sensitive people, many of us are more tuned in with all of our senses to what's happening in our bodies and our mind and our psyches. And so flower essences work on such a subtle level. Some people may not feel anything. They might wonder what's happening, what's this doing, this doesn't work. And they work on that subtle field. And so I think that because we're tuned into those subtle fields much more so than the average person, we can feel that benefit and that effect, and maybe connect even more with it, or just be aware of that connection. I mean, I hate to make generalizations, but the highly sensitive person also, because of being so tuned into everything going on around and having deep thought processes happening, there's a lot of activity with the nervous system. The nervous system is really kind of on high alert. And the same goes for people who've had a lot of trauma. So the influence of essences that are stabilizing, grounding, calming, and give that sense of safety are something that I would encourage, anyone to add to their toolkit for helping to stay balanced.
That is also my experience with the essences, that they really work to support balancing and smoothing out the experience of the nervous system, of having a nervous system, of being connected to the nervous system. Like, what does that feel to have? What is the feeling of having a regulated and calm, balanced, grounded nervous system? That this is a challenge in this time, and particularly for highly sensitive people and folks who have experienced trauma even more so. So yeah, I do love that for the flower essences, and I appreciate hearing that. And
I would just add, it's not just the flower essences, plant medicine in general, and having that relationship with plant medicine. There's a depth to it that I think that sensitive people can really resonate with. And that's, to me, throughout my day, I'm drinking herbal tea, I've taken various forms of plant medicine. That is working on a level that seems to feel more natural and better for my body most of the time, compared to some other more conventional alternatives that my body has a really hard time with. And, I, as a highly sensitive person, my body just doesn't tolerate certain things that are just absolutely fine for a wide majority of people. And I turn to the plants for that. And the flower essences, that's why I say, when it's part of your toolbox, working on that, on those subtle levels and the other levels with herbs and plant medicine.
yeah, that's such a good point, how there's so many different ways to connect in with the plants. And it is so important for us to individually find the ways that really truly resonate with us, which for any given person could be multiple different kinds of ways, and to really explore what modalities and ways of working with the plants can support whatever it is that we're experiencing in the moment. And I am, and it sounds like you are as well, certainly a huge fan of the full life immersion with the plants. Just like bring them all in any possible way that we can be connected with the plants. Let's do it, because they are very high vibrational beings. And so when we surround ourselves with them, then we can really be supported in feeling our most vibrant selves as well. And so I'd love to hear a bit more about your work. You two are doing so much in the pioneering field of flower essences. And I'd love to hear a bit about, what are you doing to support people who are really interested in plant-centric flower essence education right now?
Thanks for asking that question. We are developing the School for Flower Essence Studies, which we started with the Flower Essence Conference this spring, and the response was just like, yes. We had so many people joining us who were so excited. And it just became so clear to us that there was a real desire for more, that there was a real desire for people to be able to learn about plants in a way that's not strictly brand based, let's say. Traditionally, that's kind of where the education has been coming from, specifically from different companies who create flower essences. And our vision and dream is to help connect people directly to the plants. So we talk about being plant-centric. we really encourage people to connect in individually with the plants, and we support that in a variety of ways. A lot of what we do in our teaching is using images and sort of that depth experience that you can get even from a screen, but also just really encouraging people to connect in with the plants in their own ecosystem, in their own world, things that they're really connected to, rather than that all the information comes directly from the booklet or the, whatever the company says. We love to, because we recognize that those things are true. And also, each plant is so much more. Each flower essence is so much more than the one line description or the short, it's always used for this, this, and this. Because like you were saying with Ro, you were talking about how sort of conventional medicine or allopathic medicine, it's very reductive. The intention behind it is to create a very specific response in the body, or reaction maybe in the body. And plants never do that. Plants always have a full, like, I think of it as holographic. You take one part of it, but the entire being emerges into your experience. And when you take essences, it may be that pine is for guilt, but it's also for helping you release all of these bound up emotions and tensions and unheld spaces and wounds that weren't taken care of. And it helps you to just ground and drop them. So it's supportive for so many ways. And it's useful to go deep into the plant study and deep into the experience of what is this plant like, so that you can get a really full picture of what the essences are capable of. So that's why we talk about being plant-centric. We are really interested in going back to the source of, hello, individual plant. We really want to know you and know what your healing gift is.
Absolutely. And with the intent of the school is to support people on all levels of their journey with flower essences. So if it's a beginner who's never used them before, we'll be offering a course for that coming up. And then if it's a practitioner who's been using them for years, we have courses to go deeper into the study and practice of using those essences and looking at them from maybe an even deeper level than they may have before. And exactly what Kathleen said is that most of the trainings for flower essences have come from the big producers of flower essences. And, they have brought so much to the flower essence world. So it's, in deep gratitude for what they've done so far. However, because they are selling a brand or producing, their own essences, their teachings are focused only on those. And we've really wanted for a long time, and this is what we do on the podcast, is to talk about plants that's not producer centric. That's, talk about essences and plants regardless of where they came from, because they came from Earth, so they came from Gaia, they came from nature, and we want to look at them and work with them and categorize them, and however we want to learn about them, free from the restrictions of a certain producer or not.
I just wanted to add that we think nature is the original open source. It does not belong to anyone. It belongs to all of us.
Man, I love that. There's so much good stuff that you just shared. The nature is the original open source. I'm like, that is an amazing bumper sticker. This intention and actively what you are doing with bringing the plant-centric focus forward, that is something that is so deep to my heart as well. It's so important right now. And this aspect of what you were talking about with the essences being holographic, I really feel that too, that all plants really, and in particular, I feel this so deeply with the essences too, how they work in this fractal way, which is why one essence can work with 20 different types of emotional states or things that need to be healed, because they are working in this holographic fractal way. When you said that, Kathleen, my whole nervous system just relaxed, just took a deep breath. I was like, yes, holographic. That is how they're working. So thank you for giving voice to that. And I loved how you were sharing that you like to really go back to the source with this, which of course, I always love a good origin story, as you know. And so I'm curious to hear, how did you two, what is your origin story? How did you two meet and really begin working together on the podcast?
Okay, well, I'll start. We met, it was kismet, right? It was like a random, not random, but seemingly random meeting on the street in another city that we both don't live in, waiting in line at a bookstore to hear a speaker. And I had just started, I think, well, this was, I believe 2014, 2015. I had been making essences, and I had just started creating some blends that I was working with some naturopaths to offer their clients. And I had just gotten some new business cards that, said what I did. And here Kathleen came up behind me on the street, and we just started, she mentioned she liked my scarf, and we just started chatting. And it turns out that she was a flower essence practitioner. And that was it. That was how we met.
Yeah, imagine our surprise. It's like, you're into that too? Oh my God, to meet somebody out of the blue like that. And the crazy thing is that, flower essences, not everybody knows everybody else. I mean, we're working on that. But, at the time, she was studying with somebody totally different, or had studied with somebody totally different than me. And so our paths had not crossed, nor would they have crossed necessarily. So it was just this, it was like you say, it's kismet. It somebody put us there the same moment, at the same time, in the same spot in line. So we're grateful for that. And we just kept the conversation going. And then it was years later that it was like, it's time for a podcast. And I said, Ro, you want to do a podcast? She's like, yeah. So we did. And we've been doing that ever since. And it just keeps, we just keep following the timing and following the energy of it. And it's what's being called for. So we're just taking one step at a time and really enjoying the process. We love sharing about flower essences.
Wonderful. Yeah, there's so much in that I hear about the listening aspect. That's a part of your process of really listening what is calling to come forward, and then really honoring that, which is such a beautiful, fun, of course, can be incredibly challenging at times, and also never a dull moment experience with the plants. So I just love that you two are working like that. And I'm curious to hear a bit more about your inspiration for this. Like, really, what was the inspiration for the podcast, and how did that lead to both the Flower Essence Conference, which was absolutely incredible? You were talking about how not everyone in the flower essence world knows each other yet. And that has definitely been my experience as well. And I love how you two are doing that you're really bringing all these people together. So both for the Flower Essence Conference and the school, for that matter, as well.
Okay. So yeah, some of that I can respond to. The inspiration. I mean, Kathleen came to me with the idea for the podcast. So we can ask her a little bit more about where that came from. But I know what I want to riff off of what she was saying with not having crossed paths in the flower essence world. There was maybe some near misses, because I wanted to study with Jane Bell for a while, when maybe Kathleen, you were already a graduate of hers and working as her assistant. But it was right at the time where Jane decided to stop studying her teaching. And so I missed that little connection. And at that time, there was hardly anyone offering virtual flower essence study. You had to go to Alaska, or you had to go, for Alaskan essences, or you had to go to where FES is in the Sierra foothills of California. And you had to physically be there to do these certification and training programs to learn anything about flower essences. And so for me, and I understand, like, working with the plants, there should be an aspect of experience outside in nature with the plants, but to actually go and travel and do certification trainings, I was not able to do. So I ended up finding of Delta Gardens, David Dalton, was probably maybe the first one to offer practitioner training virtually through conference calls. And also Sara Crow had an online course. So that was it back then when I was learning flower essence therapy. And the inspiration then coming to the school, for now more people are doing it online, of course, since the pandemic, but that inspiration, that idea, that wanting to have a place to go online where it could be virtual, aspects of it could be virtual, and B, it wasn't just, like you said, with one producer or another. It wasn't someone just teaching their own essences. We wanted to have, I really felt strongly like it shouldn't be producer oriented when you're going to be certified for doing a modality. To me, that was something that I felt strongly about and wanted to see how we could kind of move the bar on that a little bit and bring people together from these different areas, these different places that they've worked. And that then fed into the conference, bringing all the people together for, with all of these experts that have been doing their own thing for decades and putting so much amazing information out in the world. But if you didn't know who they, if you didn't know them or hadn't heard of them or hadn't been in the right circles to know who was doing what, because there was, just not a lot of virtual collaboration until recently, you wouldn't have gotten the benefit of their teachings. And we really wanted to bring that together for the conference.
With Ruth Toleldo Altschuler, who is a longtime friend and colleague and mentor for me. And she had been incubating this idea of an online conference. And, meanwhile, Rochana and I had been working on our podcast and had been kind of planning how we are going to do online training and education. And this really, it came together at the perfect timing. And it was a beautiful partnership between the three of us. Ruth has been teaching for decades and bringing in educators to Brazil and has held herself more than one in-person conference. So her background and contacts and experience are completely present and accounted for. And working together with us, we were able to create this event that didn't, that was, we could all carry, with the three of us holding it, we could all carry it. And that's really been part of our process as well, is that it's not about one of us doing it. It's about all of us doing it together in teamwork, in supporting one another. And that's part of our goal is that we want to support everyone who shares our mission, who shares our goals, who, students and teachers. And we really want to expand this so that it creates a space of support and care for everyone who wants to be a part of it. That quality of mutual support is something that I think that we more and more are needing to work into in our world. It's been way too much a model of I do it all on my own. This sort of rugged individualist thing. Like, that's not the matriarchal model. We need each other. We need each other for support and help. And we all bring something really beautiful to the table. So we're really glad to be talking to you too, Sara, because it's like we're all working together, on different projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That it's so needed, as many plant people as possible to be out there in the world doing our thing with plants is absolutely needed. And that collaborative piece, I love that you two are so collaborative. This is the way of the plants. This is so needed right now on the planet. And I'd love to hear a bit more about what are some of the offerings that you have currently and then coming up at the School for Flower Essence Studies, and how can people find out more about you and your work?
Sure. We have, you can find all of our offerings at floweressencestudies.com. We created the conference so that it's evergreen. You can still attend the conference, even though it's already technically passed, because we recorded it all and we have it all available. And that's our goal, is to create things that work within people's schedules and lives. Once again, like this whole traveling and having to be somewhere in a room for it's, that's great, but that shouldn't be the only way you can learn. For so many of us, we have lives and homes and animals and families. And, it's like, we can't just pick up and haul off. So creating these educational offerings that people can touch into when they have time, space, and energy to take them in is part of our mission too. We just finished a live Jumpstart Your Flower Essence Practice Business course, and that's also going to be an evergreen, but we did teach it live because we love that live energy. We are just about to launch Botanical Families in Flower Essence Therapy, which is a new course that Ruth, Toleldo, Altschuler, and I are teaching on the linkages between plant families and the essence qualities. So it helps people who are really interested in practicing learn how to differentiate between different qualities and characteristics. They know their client needs something in the lily family, but these are all the possibilities. Rather than only perhaps knowing what Mariposa lily does, maybe another member in that family is a better fit for the client. So that's one of the offerings that we have. But we have a variety of other offerings we're getting ready to roll out, and we're really excited. It's really been wonderful.
Yeah, we'll have an essentials course for beginners coming up, and doing some bundles from some of the conference sessions that are on specific topics. So like a trauma bundle, yay, and a highly sensitive bundle. And that way it's a little more bite-sized and topic focused for people who are interested in those sessions.
Love it. Well, I just absolutely love your work with the essences. It feels very pioneering to me, and also that deeply collaborative, plant-centric way that you go about your work. I absolutely love it. And thank you both so much for joining us here on the Plant Spirit podcast today. And I am so excited to see where your work continues to evolve, and excited to continue in the collaborations together as well, because it's so fun. It's just so much more fun when we live and work and move in the way of the plants, I feel. And I love how you two do that. So thank you very much for your work in the world.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Sara. It's always great to talk with you.
And thanks so much for listening and joining us today on the Plant Spirit podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and please follow to subscribe, leave a review, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode.